Welcome to the ATP Project. Here with your hosts, Steve and Jeff. Mate, today we're doing a podcast that I've been looking forward to for a while. Now, we've touched on fertility. We've touched on males' hormones, females' hormones, specifically testosterone and estrogen. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health and how it's all sort of interconnected. What's going on with fertility? Why is it dropping? What's happening to men's testosterone levels? Why are they plummeting? What's the health impact of that? What's going on with females, fertility, their ability to get pregnant and keep the baby, all these sorts of things. But what's happening with regards to these xenoestrogens? And xenoestrogens is things that are from outside the body, these forces that we're having to deal with. And what is the impact? Is it having an impact on things like PCOS and endometriosis and other bad things that's happening? In today's society, we live in a modern world where we've got more science, more understanding of the human body, but yet there's some good news.
Yes.
And I'm not going to steal your thunder, Steve.
No, there's good and bad news.
There's good and bad news around our life, our lifespan, our health and our wellness. But Steve, there's definitely some disconnects here, and I think there's some smoking guns that we're going to get to today. So if you're interested in testosterone if you're a male, if you're interested in estrogen if you're a female, if you're interested in fertility, which you may or may not be, but you should be, and if you're interested in your feeling of well-being. So not just about depression. No. So if you're interested, this could be interesting information for you. But even your mood, how you feel, your energy levels, all that sort of stuff. Steve, we're going to cover a lot today.
And longevity.
We
just throw it all in there.
Yeah. This is going to be a big podcast, but I'm looking forward to it because this came from a conversation we were talking about, Steve, what is going on? And it started with, of course, I'm very self-focused. What's going on with men's testosterone levels? Like,
exactly.
what is the go? And then we said, well, okay, testosterone is for male, estrogen is for female. These are two major hormones that really, if they're out of kilter, that affect men and women massively. Yeah. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into it.
Well, the first thing I want to hit you with some stats.
Okay.
And I want to hit you with some longevity stats. So the life of a man and a woman. Yes. Now, I'm going to take you back to England in 1850.
1850.
Guess what the lifespan, or the average, of course, of a man and a woman was?
Steve, I cannot lie because, in this podcast, we always say that I don't know and I haven't seen it and all the rest of it. I actually looked over your shoulder. I haven't been talking to you and I saw this. And if I remember correctly, it was somewhere around about 48, 49, something like that for men and about 55 for women. Yeah,
that was the American figures.
Oh, okay.
And that was in 1900. Oh. So it was pretty bad.
Okay, what is it?
It was about the same in the 1800s, but it was like a lot less, actually. It was 42 for a man and 44 for a woman. That's the average lifespan. So I went back a bit longer. And look, I'll show you this graph and we'll put it up on the screen.
So that was in the 1850s.
Yeah.
Because, and it's funny, right? Because you think that you go, back then. And Matt, we were talking about this. This is Matt, the sound guy that you can't see, and you're lucky you can't see him. I'm just joking. He's actually a very attractive man. Oh, he's deleting that. He's deleting that. But I think in terms of everybody goes, well, back then everything was organic and everybody's good. But actually there was a lot of things, and I theorised, Steve, and I think you're going to get into it, so I'm not going to steal your thunder, but there's a lot of pollutants. There's a lot of, and this is where some regulation is great. Because we love regulation, just we hate over-regulation, right?
Yes, that's it.
And this is the juxtaposition, especially when you get special interests involved that then start lining their pockets. No, this is safe, and 9 out of 10 doctors smoke Camels and all that sort of rubbish.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'm saying is that I was surprised by these figures.
Yeah.
So where do you want to go from here? Do you want to break down why, or do you want to? Or do you want to go through the history to where we are currently about sort of the age?
Well, but a bit of both, really, because if you look at this graph, and I'll show you, Jeff.
Yep. So Matt, you're putting this one up on YouTube if you're listening. For those that
we're going to describe it.
Yep.
You can see there's two lines on this graph. Yep. One of them's lighter and one of them's darker. The lighter lines are women. And what's the first thing you notice about the graph?
Well, typically the women live right through in the same time period, live on average about 10% more.
Exactly. That's exactly right. They'd live about 10% longer than men.
The men, yeah.
Men are shit at staying alive, obviously.
Now, I would assume, and again, here's some assumptions, and this is basically sort of piecing together a little bit about what Jordan Peterson said as well too.
Oh, yeah.
Typically, men work in more hazardous jobs.
That's one reason.
Typically, if there's a war, typically more men, and this is back then, I don't know what the current statistics are around the army and how many people are seeing live combat and all the rest of it.
Yep.
But typically, where men are seeing more active duty.
Yeah.
I remember in Steve, the thing that really stood out to me was 1918. Are you going to talk about that?
Well, you can see 1918 on the graph there.
Because it can't be just men charging into machine gun fire from, in World War One, they used to have trench warfare.
Yeah, sure.
Used to blow the whistle, especially in England and all of the Allied nations, Gallipoli and all the rest of it. I still remember watching that movie as a young kid, bawling my eyes out.
Terrific.
When they charged up over the top. That starred Mel Gibson, and I forget the star of the show. Do you remember him?
Yeah, they're blonde.
Mark someone.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The other guy, yeah.
Blonde-haired guy.
Yeah. The good-looking one. Although Mel was pretty good-looking, was he?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
But, what are you, Steel Springs? You remember that?
Yeah.
And anyway, he runs, what's his name? Mark Lee. I'm sorry,
that's
Mark.
A good memory.
Yeah. He's a good actor. I really like him. Anyway, it was a great film, and they get there, they blow the whistle.
Yep.
And they charge. And I remember watching that with Dad going, and just bawling, and Dad goes, "That's the horrors of war, Jeff." I was probably about 9, I think, when I watched that.
Yeah.
And I remember as well too. They were shelling over the top into the trenches.
Yep.
And again, war is hell.
Yeah.
The poor Turkish people as well too. It's just ludicrous, right?
Yeah.
Can't believe we're on the precipice of World War III. Anyway, that's another story. But shelling over the top.
Yeah.
Then they stopped for ages.
Yeah.
There was a mix up with what happened, and they waited. I think it was 5 or 6 minutes. So what happened was the machine gunners got back into their nests, and so of course when they heard the whistle blow, all the troops, the Australian and New Zealand and other troops,
Anzacs,
came out of basically to a hail of gunfire and absolutely got mowed down.
Yeah.
And
so you can see the lifespan dropped in.
But why did women drop exactly at the same time? Was it the Spanish? No, because that's 1918.
Yeah.
Spanish flu wasn't until 19...
Yeah, it was 1920.
1920? I forget.
Yeah, I can't remember. But no, it was because women were also casualties of war because, countries were invaded.
Right.
And they didn't really discriminate back then. They just kind of...
Well, I still don't think they do.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
1918.
There you go. So that was around the time. So that would have made it all worse.
I reckon, because honestly, the dip here around 1918 is huge. So it's got to be the Spanish flu. Yeah.
Well, that was 50 million. Yeah, that would have been
minimum.
The main...
They said it could be up to 200 million, and it's very ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so what we can see is, and what we're establishing though, is that typically going back to 1850, the average lifespan was just over 40.
Yep.
Up to 2000 here.
Yeah, it goes up to
1998, Steve, is that right?
Yeah, well, this one went up to 2000, and you can see that men are in the high 70s, women in the low 80s. So it's about that disparity again of 6-7 years.
Yeah.
So and it's been pretty. You can see it steadily increasing there in the graph.
Well, that's the good news.
That's good news.
And that's very low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the evidence clearly shows that men don't live as long.
Yeah.
And there's many reasons why. You touched on one, which is men's and this is all typical. This is across statistics that they typically have more dangerous jobs.
Right.
Whether it's construction or whatever. That's typically. I'm not saying women don't do it.
Yeah.
But men do more dangerous jobs.
There's more men in those professions at the moment. No, it's not saying it's right or wrong. So I'm saying you can. But typically, in the way that things have historically been.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
So there's two mechanisms that this paper, and I'll read the paper. It's published in International Health, and it's called "The Male Disadvantage in Life Expectancy: Can We Close the Gender Gap?"
Well, one more thing I want to throw out as well too. Typically, they reckon that our frontal cortex doesn't develop until we're 25.
Yeah.
Statistically, and this is an assumption, so I could be wrong here, but I would imagine that more young males kill themselves through driving accidents and taking stupid risks more than females.
They do.
Why? Why is that?
Because
why are young males more risk takers than young females?
Because of higher levels of testosterone. It has a positive effect, but it has a negative effect as well.
Right.
And so testosterone is very interesting. It does change your behaviour.
Yes.
So ultimate example
of that?
Roid rage.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say.
Well, you think about that, you remember when you were 17, I barely do, but it's like the hormones surge through the body, and you've got this, I was doing stupid things on my push bike, trying to jump rubbish bins, and I've got a scar on my elbow or across my bike. It's like, why would I do that? Now I'm thinking, you bloody idiot, no helmets.
Yeah.
You just tried to jump as many, and I did 3, so the next logic in my logic brain was to try 4. Yeah. Didn't make it. Yeah. Ended badly. Yeah. But you just crashed on the ground. I cut my elbow and had to get it stitched up and, all this sort of stuff. So, but, everyone does that. It's just daft behaviour. And, I remember as a kid, driving the car was about handbrake turns and, burnouts.
But why don't girls do it? Is because of their testosterone's lower? So
lower testosterone.
But what is it, the testosterone that hits some sort of receptors in the brain that goes, I'm just going to do stupid stuff?
Well, you got to remember, stupid stuff in cars is not part of our history. You got to remember pre-18.
Climbing trees, like hanging from branches, standing with one foot over a cliff. Like, why do we do stuff that has effectively no benefit, really?
Well, it does have a benefit. It's trying to impress the woman.
And so if you remember, peacocking.
Yeah. I was going to use the peacock. The peacock, he will fluff up his beautiful feathers because I don't know.
But he's not doing it with one leg hanging over a cliff.
Exactly. but
he's doing it because he wants to get a bit of.
Okay, yeah. Well, think of lions. There's one alpha male. They fight to get dominance. There's lots of species that do that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're not fighting.
So it's almost part of courting.
It is.
And it's to show strength
to
other males?
Yep.
Okay.
And because you've got to remember that this is this is throughout the animal kingdom. It's not just humans that do this stupid behaviour. I mean, crocodiles eat each other to get to have sex with a woman. That's pretty bad too.
With another crocodile.
Yeah. Female crocodiles, I should say. Yeah. So testosterone is part of it, but I want to take you back to the uterus. The male fetus is biologically weaker and more vulnerable to maternal stress in pregnancy complications than the female fetus. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
All right. Okay. I'll read straight from the paper. Available evidence indicates that the male fetus is biologically weaker and more vulnerable to maternal stress and pregnancy complications than the female fetus.
Is that why, and if I remember correctly, Steve, you might have the statistics on this, that male to female births is slightly in favour of females? Yes. I think it's like 50.3
to
49.7 or something like that.
Exactly, because for reproduction point of view, males reproduction, males are less useful.
I like schooling this guy. It makes me feel superior. Yeah. Sorry, Steve.
But it's true. Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to reproduce a species, you only need a few men, really, or less men. You need more women because they carry babies for 9 months. So it's much more important than just us as, frankly, sperm donors.
We're more than that.
A little bit more, but that's about it. So
from a biological point of view, okay, I'll accept that.
So men die in the womb more.
Right.
Okay, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Also, then there's the genetic hypothesis, which has evidence showing that we have XY, women have 2 X chromosomes. The X chromosome is very important for longevity. And so if you've got a slightly defect in one of your X chromosomes, the woman's got the backup of the other X chromosome.
So why is X help with longevity? Why? As opposed to Y? Sorry, that was really poorly phrased. But why are X's stronger than the Y?
Yes, because most of your immune...
Scheisen. Sorry.
Most of your immune genes hang out on the X chromosome.
Most of your what?
Immune genes hang out on the X chromosome.
Okay. So is a woman's immune system better? That's why
way better.
That's why lupus and other autoimmune diseases are more prevalent in women.
Much more prevalent.
Yes. Okay.
But also,
I think I do remember that.
Now, going back to our 1850 and why there was a difference there, is that the X chromosome has much better immune capability. So if you've got 2 of them, women survive infections more than men. Oh. And that used to kill a lot of us.
Right.
And even, and I'll just read this paper, this offers females an enhanced capacity to fight off respiratory, bacterial and viral infections, including the COVID-19 virus, which is why...
we can say that.
Okay, good. Now. So that's why, if you look at the stats, there's way more men die of COVID-19 than women.
Well, is this also why men suffer more from the flu?
Yes.
So, and again, I know we've mentioned this in another podcast.
Here we go.
I love being controversial, so put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to, in all seriousness, is that Men do it tougher. Oh, no. We're going to get emails.
I can hear the emails now raining down.
Scientific proof. No, we are babies, so we do like to be mothered. Let's face it.
That's true, but also we've got a shitty immune system.
Yep,
we do.
It's not our fault.
No, it's not our fault. I just got this stupid Y chromosome. I don't know what to do with that, but I've only got one X chromosome.
Yep.
And that sucks, apparently.
Yeah.
It sucks when it comes to infections.
Okay.
But also sucks when it comes to heart disease.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, like what we know about heart disease is, and I'm picking on heart disease because it's our biggest killer in the Western world, okay? Women are highly protected against it because of their estrogen levels.
Right. How does it protect? How does estrogen protect?
It increases HDL cholesterol in the body.
Right.
Now, HDL cholesterol, for those who don't know, is the good cholesterol that goes around, mops up the fat out of the arteries and takes it back to the liver.
Right.
So if you've got more HDL cholesterol, then you're going to typically get less heart disease, live longer.
So for a man listening to this that's either got heart disease in the family or has heart disease themselves, what's the one thing that you'd recommend that they do, Steve?
Intense exercise.
Yep.
And increased healthy saturated fats.
And they are?
Oh, with the healthy saturated fats, things like from coconut.
Yep.
The medium chain triglycerides.
Yep.
Things like from butter.
Yep.
Is very good. That's a saturated fat.
Isn't that funny? 50 years ago, you would have been shot for saying that.
Yeah, eating eggs and that sort of thing.
Unbelievable. Even 20 years ago, you would have been shot for saying that.
I know. Now it's 2023 and we can say that because the evidence is out.
Yep.
But also intense exercise. Sorry, guys, get off the couch.
Yep. Avocados. What about nuts? Things like that?
Nuts are good. They're good.
Especially Brazil nuts for guys. And they've got multiple reasons why they're really good. But, even peanuts with the skins on them, they've also got additional benefits as well too, right?
And also pumpkin seeds because that's very good for your prostate. It's a good source of zinc, really good source of magnesium.
Right. And you've got your fatty acids in there as well.
Yes. It's just a good thing all round.
And these are things that typically a lot of people don't eat. So if you have,
don't eat them,
something, and again, if this is heart disease is a concern, pomegranates and get some of the pericarp, get some of the stuff. I know I bang on like a bloody broken gong on that, but seriously, it's good.
You've got to.
All right. What else, Steve?
Second biggest killer is cancer.
Yeah.
Who gets more cancer, men or women?
I think, have we mentioned this before?
Don't know. It's an interesting question, isn't it?
I don't know. If we have, I don't remember what the answer is.
1 in 2 men during their lifetime will be diagnosed with cancer.
Right, 1 in 2.
Okay. 1 in 2. 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with a cancer in their lifetime.
Is the most prominent cancer in men prostate?
Yes.
Which is normally, and again, it's very important that you get your prostate checked and all that sort of stuff. But prostate can be a slow burn, right?
It can be.
But it can
metastasize to the bones.
I have trouble saying that word, and that can go really, really quickly. Which is again why we recommend things like pumpkin seed, which is why we recommend regular checkups, exercise, staying away from the cigarettes, all these sorts of things. Right, so
very, very important. And keeping yourself lean. That's very important because fat cells make estrogen.
Is it also with testosterone in the prostate? Is it the conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone that has an affinity with the prostate that causes the problem? Yes,
and you've hit on a really interesting point, and we'll talk about testosterone in men in detail later. But in the 1940s, there was a study done where they gave, when they could synthesize testosterone back then, they gave testosterone to 3 men, and one of them developed prostatic cancer.
Right.
So they said that, beware of testosterone because it increases prostatic cancer in 33% of participants.
Wow. That's a very small study.
Very small.
And there must be,
and they didn't check before whether he may have had it.
Okay.
But that has permeated throughout the ages. Now it's been debunked medically.
Sure.
And there's evidence to suggest, and I'll go through the paper later.
Testosterone has protective effects?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And in fact,
it's the type of estrogen.
The type of estrogen, yes.
And it's also ensuring, my understanding, Steve, is that it doesn't convert. Now, you need a little bit of DHT.
Yes.
Right? Now, DHT, for those that are listening, dihydrotestosterone, gets a bad rap.
It does.
Because it can make us bald, Steve-O, which we don't like. Zinc is a major protectant against that conversion.
Yes.
Probably the best to stop was alpha-5 reductase.
Yeah, 5-alpha reductase.
5-alpha reducase, sorry.
True. You know your enzymes.
So in terms of Steve, my hair started thinning, so I know my enzymes, right? I've been looking into this for years.
Can't notice it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. That's because I'm taller than you, and you're not looking at the back of my head.
Yeah.
But that's all right. But what I was going to say, though, is that, but I'm working on that. But what we're working on that. We're working on it.
Yeah.
But I think we're, anyway. So I think it's the conversion, right? And it's also pollutants, it's toxins, it's stress. There's a whole lot of reasons, and I don't understand the exact chemical breakdown. You need some DHT. If you don't have DHT in small amounts also helps with erection. So if you don't have any DHT in your body, guess what? It's floppy noodle.
And that's one of the side effects of Durestide and finasteride, the two drugs that block DHT.
Yes, and this is where you've got to get the ratios right, which is, again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use, DHT blocking compounds, for hair and what have you.
They work for your hair.
But also that can cause gyno as well too, Steve, if you get too low, right? So this is where I think nature knows best, right? So this is where you can use things like zinc. What else could you use, Steve, to make sure that you're... So what we're trying to work on in this podcast for both men and women, and we'll get to women, and I don't want to sort of, upset you, Steve, because you've got a process that you're running through.
No,
here.
that's all right.
But what we want to do, the whole idea of this podcast is to understand the importance of testosterone for males, the importance of estrogen for women, what the byproducts or the toxic forms can be when they get out of whack, which is DHT or dihydrotestosterone for males. So you need some, but you don't want too much. And for women, it's about estradiol. So, and it's the 16 form that's the worst, isn't it? 4 and 16. 4 and 16.
Hydroxyestrogen,
Yeah, so estrogen is important for women because the skin and, and
a lot of papers on that galore.
Great. And so this is where I get worried, and we get worried when people say, I'm going to take an estrogen blocker. Even for men, we need estrogen in small amounts, right? So in right ratio. So it's about how we get the perfect ratio of testosterone and, other forms of testosterone like the dihydrotestosterone and things like that. Same with estrogen, and the amounts that you need and how you detoxify, how you keep your levels elevated in the perfect ratio.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's about the ratio. And so men, our testosterone declines about 1 to 3% every year.
Right.
It starts at 19.
Right.
So look, imagine how low mine will be.
Yeah.
At 54.
Yeah.
It's like, shizer. It's down the...
But mind you, there's things, Steve-O, that we understand. Now, there's both chemical intervention, which I'm not entirely against, but there's things that you can do to make sure that whatever you get doesn't get converted. As I said before, a friend of mine did it straight away. Hair loss, back hair, acne, all sorts of negative side effects. Yeah. And too much of a good thing you can do as well too. So, but I like natural things that you can do to increase testosterone levels.
And that's what I take, a natural supplement I can't mention the name of.
But we can talk about the ingredients in there, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. All right, where do you want to go from here?
All right, so we're still sort of unfortunately picking on men and why we die so quick.
And it's relation to testosterone.
Yes, relation to... Now, testosterone for a man, if you've ever seen a man get weight, they really put it on their gut, right?
Yep.
And they build up what we call visceral fat.
Yep.
Women,
what's the difference between subcutaneous and visceral, just again, really quick?
Visceral fat sits on the gut here and it's mobilizing. It continually floods throughout the body. It doesn't just sit there.
Sits around the organs.
Yep.
It's considered to be the more dangerous of the types of fat. Typically harder when you hit the stomach. Sometimes you can even have abs over the top of it.
You do have abs over the top of it.
So it's sitting in behind, as opposed to subcutaneous fat, which is more flobberly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Subcutaneous means just under the skin.
Just under the skin, which can be more difficult to burn because it has lower blood supply.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit more unsightly, but mind you, a big beer belly typically that sits, mind you, neither of them are great.
No, you don't want a roof over the shed, as they say. That's the slang word for visceral fat.
I like it.
Oh, you don't want me to elaborate on that, do you?
No, I think most people know what that is.
But so let's look at a woman's shape when she puts on weight.
Right.
I know, we're going to...
No, let's just be straight down the line.
Okay. They develop much more of an hourglassy figure. Even heavier women do sometimes. Now, unless they've got hormonal problems and they start putting on weight here, most women start putting on weight around the hips, the thighs and quads.
Now just quickly, if women start putting... It's what it is skinny arms and legs and a big belly.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, that can be a problem with thyroid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have hypothyroidism.
Yeah.
and they can also have PCOS together. Now, PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah.
So in other words, that's hyperandrogenism. It's one of the three criteria.
Yeah.
So they've got lots of androgens.
Yeah.
So the androgens tell the fat to build up around the waist.
Which is kind of what happens to men.
Very dangerous for women.
Very dangerous. Why is it so dangerous for women?
Because the testosterone that's elevated causes growths on certain tissues, like, cancer, but also growths firstly on the ovaries, and you get these cysts on the ovaries, which is where you get the name polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that causes horrendous side effects. But also the androgens throughout the body, they get deeper voice, they get facial hair. Hirsutism is the medical term. And that's disturbing for a woman.
Sure.
And psychologically damaging too if they become more masculine.
Sure.
And that's terrible. But that's to do with the hormones. But what comes first, the hormones or the weight? And it depends on the individual, but it's very reversible. And this is the good thing about this. With it has to be quite strict diet and a quite strict exercise program.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because a lot of these women, do the 20 minutes walk in the morning like their friend who's relatively lean, but they need to do more. They need to do this much stricter diet to get insulin levels down, and they have to do more exercise. So it's a bit of a double whammy, but it can be reversed. Mm-hmm. It's like a pre-diabetes situation.
Okay.
And so you have to watch for insulin levels and blood sugar levels too. Very dangerous. So that's not every woman, and about 1 in 7 women to 1 in 10 women can develop PCOS these days. So it's not uncommon either. But men will always put fat on our guts, which is why we get heart disease, which is one of the reasons why we die sooner.
Right.
But there's another reason why we die sooner. The men, I'm picking on men today, but we have much shorter telomeres.
Right.
Than women.
The telomere stuff is interesting because they sort of say that telomeres are effectively the almost like the how would you say? It's almost like telomeres and anti-aging go hand in hand. And there's been a lot of scientific conjecture around how to prolong telomere life. Because that's the holy grail of lifespan, really.
Absolutely.
So what's men's issue with telomeres, and what are telomeres exactly?
Yeah, telomeres are like the ends of, if you think of a shoelace, you got those little plastic tips at the end.
Flugelbinders.
Is that what they're called?
No, that's what it's called in. Was it Jerry Maguire?
Oh God!
What is it? There's a movie that talks about flugelbinders. Is it? I'm pretty sure it's Tom Cruise, and it might be Rain Man. Let's have a look. Let's go Flugelbinders. Cocktail.
Cocktails and Dreams.
Oh, it was Cocktail.
Oh, that had Brian Brown in it.
Yes, it did. Australian.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Man, I tell you what, Tony says to me, she goes, Jeff, you have the most brilliant memory for the most useless information. But I tell you to go get milk, and I tell you to go get eggs, and you come back with one or the other. Or neither. It's like kind of squirrel. It's like I get distracted.
It's so funny. I got, you wouldn't want to have dinner with me because you have these. I talk about this crap all day.
I would like to have dinner with you, Steve. I can't believe you haven't asked.
Oh.
No, not like that. Just because I love your brain.
We have great chats.
Yeah, but no. I mean, that's interesting, and you've got a great memory for that. Yeah. I've got a great memory for just useless knowledge. I mean, unless I went on Sale of the Century, do they still do that? Unless I went on Jeopardy or something, like maybe I should. But honestly, anything of real value, I've got nothing.
Sale of the Century. I think it's been off there for about 20 years.
What? When did that happen?
I don't know. I haven't seen Tony Barber.
Tony Barber?
Is
he not on TV anymore?
I don't think
that's terrible.
Unfortunately, we love Tony Barber.
At least Platt.
Remember he used to run in and always have that run.
Boxing.
That was awesome, wasn't it?
It was. It was great.
What happened to those? Now we've got Eddie Maguire on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
I don't watch TV anymore.
Yeah, he's still on.
Yeah. It's not as good as the 80s TV.
So we have. I'm going to sound really. If this is edited correctly, I'm going to sound really intelligent.
Okay.
We have men are born with lower levels of Flugelbinder.
Right. So we have what, shorter Flugelbinders?
Shorter Flugelbinder.
So this is the end. Is this genetic sequencing?
Yes. And you think of a gene as a shoelace, and at the end you've got
everyone's seen it, right? Where you've got the double helix.
Yep.
And then
single is RNA.
And when you get to the end of that, right? It's like the plastic thing on your shoelace.
Flugelbinders,
right?
Yep.
And that's the telomere.
That's right.
Right.
Now, every time it divides, because cells divide, this fluger binder or a little bit of shoelace end gets shorter.
Right.
And after about 50, or what we term the Hayflick limit, which is by Professor Hayflick,
Sure.
the cell apoptosis, in other words, dies.
Yeah. So this is why scientists and people have been fascinated with improving telomere health.
Yep.
Now, Steve, if you know how to do it, let's not say it. Let's create a product and become rich.
Well, I know how to do it.
Oh.
There are cells that can do it.
Are you going to talk about a product right now or just ingredients?
Just a process in the body. You know,
Process in the body?
Yeah.
So we're not giving away any secrets?
No, this is
because
not a
I'm
secret.
telling you.
This is not a secret.
We could go, how do you sleep at night? On piles of money with beautiful lady. That's my wife, Tony, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you know how to do it?
yeah, hang on.
You ready?
Hang on. Are
You
we
ready to
giving away
hit it?
secrets here? That
This is not really
We're
a
not giving
secret.
away millions and millions of dollars,
I promise you it's not.
Okay.
I don't think
All right,
anyone
well,
wants
we can
this.
tell people then because
All right.
we want to, yeah.
One way to do it is get cancer.
Oh,
Because cancer cells are immortal.
Steve.
They secrete telomerase, which
I thought,
grows-
you know, may as well say, you know what? Turn into a jellyfish.
Yeah, they live forever. But no, cancer
Do you know who
cells.
doesn't get cancer?
Who?
Sharks.
I've heard that.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't know if it's true or not.
Do you want to? Is that true?
There was a treatment years ago where shark cartilage was used as a treatment.
Yeah, and the other thing that they were using as well too, I think, was like deep. Was it squalene? What's squalene from?
Squalene's from sharks. That's for thrombocytopenia. Yeah, for the liver. It's good
from
for
the liver, right?
thrombocytes.
Yeah, it's like because it's done under pressure or something. But sharks don't go down that deep though.
Oh, some of them do.
Sharks do get cancer.
They do get cancer.
Oh,
yeah.
what a load of crap.
Oh, buddy,
But
yeah.
naked and blind mole rats generally are not susceptible to the disease.
Wow, there you go. So if you're a naked, blind mole rat, are we allowed to say that? No.
If we eat naked blind mole rats, will we? Is that you know what? People are probably going to start clubbing those things to death and how upset they won't get
It's
cancer.
funny because there's substances in cartilage which can treat cancer.
Yeah.
In early studies,
Right.
because cartilage contains metastatin, which is a chemical that stops the growth of new blood vessels.
Right.
Because you think of cartilage, it's clear, it's got no blood vessels in it.
Metastatin.
Yeah, metastatin.
Not myostatin.
No, not myostatin.
I am
it's a
interested in
muscle thing.
myostatin.
Yeah, I know. I would love to get some myostatin.
So would I.
But
and then basically, if you see that, if you Google it, you'll see like animals that was ridiculous amounts of muscle. It's
Yes.
funny because I remember there was proteins when I first started selling supplements back
Yeah.
in the early 2000s. Juiced protein and myostatin, and you know, it's just like, oh my gosh, the absolute ridiculous, unscrupulous claims that you could take the substance to get myostatin. My understanding is that it's actually is it a polymorphism? It's a suppression of a gene, isn't it? That basically, you know, and it's actually fatal, I think, in some cases, Steve.
Oh, it probably would be. If you look up myostatin and cow, you'll see a cow with a myostatin problem, and they're as muscly as
yeah. Or the dog one's even better. I remember looking at the dog. I think there's a greyhound, and it's a myostatin dog.
Really?
The other one as well too is what's the other one I was going to say?
There's the cow.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. He's ripped.
That is.
And have you seen the kangaroos? Yeah, look at the rat. But there's a dog as well too, and it's just like walking around, and it looks ridiculous.
Oh, really?
Oh, there you go. Hang on. Oh, the one at the top left. That one at the top left.
Look
that's
at
the
that one.
Yeah, it reminds me of the kangaroos as well too. Right?
I
It's
am
just
not
like-
breaking into that place. Look at the muscle, because the muscles just keep growing and growing.
But does it eventually kill you then?
Well, yeah, for sure. Do something to your heart. I'm sure your heart might grow.
Yeah.
You end up with Marfan's in the dog, if there's such a thing. I don't know if Marfan's is in a dog, by the way. But
There you go.
oh wow, love it.
That dog is buff.
That's the buffest dog. Is it a greyhound?
Yeah,
It's got a muscly head.
I know.
How is that even possible?
Got the Arnold Schwarzenegger head.
It's beautiful,
Got to the
yeah.
jumper.
So
Get out.
cute. But imagine it like all right, going back to commercialism. If you can get that in cows, then we're going to have vastly more meat to
Yes.
eat, aren't we? I mean, not the greatest thing.
But yes, I think that's exactly right. So I think in terms of, well, how do we get into myostatin? What did you say?
Well, we're talking about men and why we get heart disease and telomeres.
Telomeres,
is
yeah.
what we were talking about there. So we have shorter telomeres, which sucks. But nothing else. Something else sucks about it is the sexual selection hypothesis. Have you heard of that one?
Well, no. But hang on, just go back to telomeres for 1
Telomeres,
second.
yeah.
Is there anything known in nature? Is there anything that you can do to either increase your telomere length, which I know the answer to that's probably going to be no. Like you can't increase your height after you finish growing,
Correct,
right?
yeah.
So that's set. But is there anything that you can do to stop the breakdown or conversely, is there anything that you can do to increase the breakdown of your telomeres? Now, I would imagine things like pro-oxidants, things like endocrine disrupting hormones might. Well, I don't know. Right. So
there's only 3 things that have been shown to in good studies, slow preserve lifespan.
Yeah.
And this is only as high as they've gone is primates. The first one is calorie restriction.
Well, this is Dr. Linus Pauling.
Yeah.
Vitamin C. How many calories did he eat a day, Steve?
Oh,
on average?
know.
It was really low.
Like 1,200 or something?
I think it was. Something stupid like that, 8 to 12. I mean, that's crazy. But he lived until his 90s. Now, that's just a one-man thing. But I do believe, and this is where I believe the wisdom of the ancients actually proves to be very smart sometimes.
Yeah.
Fasting, regular fasting, I think is very good for you.
It is.
I really need to do more of it. In fact, I don't do hardly any of it. But anyway, this is something that I think is really important to do.
Yeah, so we know in animals, rats to monkeys, that if you restrict the calories, they tend to live about 20% longer. So and again, is it in humans?
That's a lot, 20%.
Well, yeah. I mean, is there human studies? No, because you can't starve a human for 100 years.
And the reason for that being very, very basically, it sounds like that when you're eating, you're constantly replicating, which means that things are constantly being photocopied and broken down and repaired.
Yep.
Whereas when you stop, your whole system focuses on repair, not on build.
That's right.
So if you then focus on repairing, as opposed to just constantly building, you're going to, fix up broken DNA strands. You're going to preserve the body's status quo.
Absolutely. And even more fundamental things like you firstly don't become overweight. So I drop my chin on the ground.
I'm not picking it up. Yeah.
You don't become overweight.
Yep.
You don't get diabetes because you haven't got enough sugar in your system because you're typically eating healthier.
Yep.
Therefore, your heart disease rates go down, cancer rates go down because less sugar in the body.
So start remapping your gut health, which actually kills off the bacteroides, the firmicutes that actually make you crave sugars.
Yep.
There's all sorts of cool things that actually happen in the body when you start fasting.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
Yeah.
I did a 3-day fast one time.
All right. Oh, did you?
Yeah, 3 days.
I think I did 2 days when I was in college.
Yeah. That's nothing, though. Some people go way they do week-long fasts.
Yeah, I know.
It's incredible. 3 days, that was pretty full on, man. Holy cow.
Do you ever watch Naked and Afraid?
No.
It's a show on TV.
Is this where they go out into the bush?
Naked, yep. And they've got nothing, no food. And some of them don't eat for like a week.
Wow.
Not by choice.
Sure. They just can't hunt anything.
Can't find anything to eat.
Wow.
Incredible. So that's a good experiment. They lose tons of weight and get depressed and everything. But it's not healthy. But of course, it's just. But that shows that the human can do that.
But I think in terms of okay. So that's one. What's the other way?
The other way was to so intense exercise.
Yep.
Exercise, reducing calories, and high antioxidants.
Right. That makes sense.
And it was a plethora of it was these are all animal studies.
Sure.
Because we don't know how long humans can live, but these are in longevity.
Can you go somewhere and measure your telomeres?
Yeah.
And would that give you a prediction of how long you should live?
No. You can get a blood test and they use the leukocytes, the white blood cells, to measure the telomeres. And what you do is you measure it and you see how long they are, which is semi-irrelevant.
Oh.
Because what you want to do is intervene at that point and then see how it goes in 2 months. You know what I mean? Like if your telomeres are short.
That's almost giving you like a half-life, right? So in other words, you can go, okay, yours are breaking down at 1 telomere strand every week.
Yep.
Someone else might break down at 1, and yours might be, 10 millimeters long. I'm just picking rubbish stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you're losing, 1 telomere every 10 years. So in other words, you're going to live to 100. Whereas someone else might do it and they might go, well, yours are 12 long, but you're losing 2 telomeres every 10 years. So you're actually only going to live to 60.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
It does. But what we know is that people also, just to confuse this a bit, is that people with shorter telomeres live longer. They just don't lose it as fast.
Wow.
So you can have shorter telomeres and still live. Because you remember, everybody around here lived till about 80 anyway. Not many people drop dead of old age at 40. Not like old age.
Yeah.
They get a heart attack and drop dead or cancer. But old age specifically with the telomeres. So, it's important to get your telomeres measured twice to see how they progress over an intervention.
Okay.
It's like anything. It's like jumping on the scales. How heavy are you? It's irrelevant because I'm going on a diet now and an exercise program. So what's important is how it's going to be next week.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going down. Even if you're overweight and it's gone down 2 kilos, that next result is a good result.
So long as it's not muscle or water that you've lost. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. Okay.
So it's very interesting. There's also another hypothesis for why men don't live as long, and it's called the sexual selection hypothesis.
Okay, sexual selection.
You're not going to like this one.
Why?
That means that men are pretty useless when after they donate their sperm, basically, is what they're saying. Because like that, to reproduce, what do you need? You need the woman to live longer so they can look after the child. This is in the, it's crude, right? But this is what they're saying is why that we just don't. Men are not needed as much.
It's like a praying mantis.
Yes,
bite their head off.
That's a great case in point, because men in that species are not needed once the woman is pregnant.
Procreated.
I think there's something about redbacks or something like that.
Yep, they do the same thing.
Oh, jeez. So men are not really needed as much.
But what about to protect against wild animals?
Well, we can do that for a few years and then we die off sooner.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying there's no role in that sort of thing. Right. So they're the biological reasons that they suggest. There are other reasons, of course. So men, unfortunately, suffer more suicide than women too, which shortens our expected life expectancy, because 3 out of 4 of the successful suicides are men.
Right.
So men commit suicide more.
Yeah.
Women will attempt more suicides, like a overdose
pills and things like that.
That sort of thing.
And maybe that's the difference, is because they can be saved, if that makes sense. If someone discovers you and you've taken pills, you can have your stomach pumped, you can get to hospital. Whereas, and I don't know if this is true or not, but men typically, and I'd be interested to know this, I reckon they choose more violent deaths.
They do choose more violent deaths.
Yeah, which is jumping off a cliff or doing that sort of stuff.
Guns.
Now, it's always on my mind whenever we're talking about anything to do with suicide and something like that. If you are suffering with depression, please reach out and get help from Lifeline. Please reach out to your doctor. Please go get support, because this is where you need intervention and all the rest of it. So, please go get help. People are there to help you.
Exactly right.
But yeah, Steve, that's sad.
It is
very sad.
Also, men, we do smoke more. We abuse alcohol more.
Yeah.
And they're responsible for lower longevity, of course, as well. We also have more hazardous work environments, typically. Mm-hmm. We also, and this is what I said before, and this is in the paper. It says the male sex hormone testosterone has been shown to be responsible for predisposing men to health to more risky behaviours.
Yeah,
and it just that's what testosterone does.
Just makes you more of a risk taker.
Yeah, and do you know what helps protect men? And you got to like this one.
What?
Getting married. And it does say in this paper, marriage may protect men from risky social habits.
Makes sense.
It's just like, in other words, we need a woman to look after us because we're idiots.
Well, we need something to live for. We need something
exactly.
and again, if you're self-focused and self-absorbed, it's a pretty shallow life. Whereas if you've actually got somebody that you can share your life with and sow into, I know that sounds very philosophical, but I believe it to be true.
Exactly. There's only one place in Europe where women smoke more than men, and the gap between them is only 3 years of longevity.
Yeah, where's that?
And that's in, where is it? Sweden.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, way, I didn't know that.
That is interesting.
It says an interesting case is Sweden, where smoking is more prevalent in women than men, and the gender gap in longevity is one of the lowest in Europe. So smoking is pretty bad for you, as it turns out. Yeah, who would have guessed? So that's sort of what we've got with the difference between men and women, and we can probably talk more about hormones now and all that sort of stuff.
Well, again, Steve, I wanted to get to the crux of the matter. Testosterone, estrogen.
I've just picked on those two.
Yeah, and this is what we need to look at.
Yeah. Okay, let's say, everyone's heard of hormone replacement therapy, HRT?
Yes, HRT,
okay.
Yep.
Okay, so this was the be-all and end-all that was going to, because as a woman stops ovulating at about 51, they stop producing as much estrogen and progesterone. And the idea is that no worries, we'll give you a pill with estrogen and progesterone in it to replace it. It sounds like a good idea, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know. You know what I'm going to go with this, don't you? Unfortunately, that it didn't really work out that way. And they're still publishing papers on this today, but they can't do what they call intervention trials. They've been stopped. In other words, it is unethical to prescribe women estrogen because it is a listed carcinogen.
Wow.
Oral estrogen. So what they have to do is what they call retrospective studies. In other words, they say, okay, you're on it, let's test what happens to you. So in this paper here, and this is a paper of, you're going to love this, I'll just round the number off, 4.5 million postmenopausal women. And what they did was that some of them took HRT, but they all had regular breast screening tests for cancer. Now, what they found, and this is not a shock, but if a woman goes on HRT for, say, less than 2 years, it's an 8% increase in breast cancer.
8%. That's pretty statistical significance, Steve.
It was, yep. It reached, but if they went from 2 to 5 years, which is not uncommon, it's a 33% increased risk of breast cancer. Mm-hmm. Now, if they're more than 5 years, it's a 72% increased risk of breast cancer.
I have heard this study before.
This is quite scary. This was published in 2020, so very interesting.
Can I tell you, I actually started hearing about some of the negative side effects and the negative impacts of HRT as far as cancer is concerned 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's when the first big paper came out. Mm-hmm. It increased heart disease, cancer, and stroke. Yep. And it's like, because estrogen also causes clotting, which is not a bad thing if it's regulated, but if it's too much, it's a problem. So oral synthetic hormone, and these are synthetic. HRT, one of the drugs, Premarin, stands for pregnant mesogyne. That's what it used to be, got from. So it's not actually, and I would argue that there is a beneficial form of replacement hormone. Sure. But that's bioidentical, the same stuff that's in the human body.
And what's interesting, Steve-O, is that because it's producing more of the 4 and 16 estradiol, which does create, as you said, clotting. More clotting, right?
Absolutely, and more cancers. It's more. It's just quite dangerous. So, we used to not recommend against HRT, but I think time has come. I mean, it's quite a dangerous drug. If you're going to take it for a very short amount of time, because hot flushes can be terrible in some people.
And again, as we always say, this is for information purposes only. Please consult with your healthcare practitioner before you do anything.
Absolutely.
But Steve, what are some of the things that people could look into and go and talk to their healthcare practitioner about alternatives?
Alternatives, okay. There's two alternatives. One's natural, one's synthetic.
Sure.
So let's look at the natural one. There's certain herbs that can help with hormonal balance in women. Yep. Something you want to boost is your LH and
luteinizing
FSH.
hormone. Yep, follicle stimulating hormone.
And that naturally produces more estrogen. Now, it doesn't boost it up to super physiological levels, but it gets rid of some of the hot flushes.
And this is interesting because this is typically where we talk to people about herbs that are usually used in men to enhance testosterone.
Correct.
But postmenopausal women, and again, Steve, I'm not making any advice here. I'm saying this is interesting information. Again, you can confirm or deny. Sure. Is that things like Tribulus?
Tribulus is very good.
Shilajit.
Yep.
What about things like Tonkat Ali?
Yeah.
What about
Panax
ginseng?
Yep.
All of these things may be beneficial.
Yeah, very much so.
And what about
cohosh?
Black cohosh? What about things that reduce the conversion of estrogen down to 4 and 16 or help to detoxify estradiol 4 and 16?
Sure, we're talking about the brassica vegetables.
Sure.
That are very good.
Which is?
Like anything like broccoli. Cauliflower.
Yep.
Even kale does it.
Yep.
So all those sorts of healthy green vegetables, which is a great place to start anyway.
Absolutely.
It's good for you in multiple ways. We could crap on about how good they are, but this is really good for your hormones.
Sulfurous, right? This is sulfurous. So sulforaphanes that you want.
Correct.
Right? And that helps with the detoxification.
Yep. And the normalization of the 2, 4, and 16 hydroxyestrogen pathway.
4 and 16, right.
Yeah. And you want more 2s, you want less 4s and 16s.
Good.
And that's what the broccoli for dinner will help you do.
Great.
So great to get, use food as medicine first.
Yep.
So also, of course, now as you get older, women in their 50s, they tend to put on weight. Statistically, that's a very dangerous time for a woman. And so they have to, I used to, when I was in practice, you'd say, I'm doing nothing different, yet I'm putting on all this weight. And because all the hormones have changed, they've lost their protective progesterone because they're not ovulating anymore. Ovulation is when you produce lots of progesterone. And without that, the thyroid doesn't work as well. So things start to break down. Now, I want to refer you back to that graph where we said that we lived into our 40s.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have been an issue for those women if they lived to their 40s.
Of course.
It's like, okay, menopause is, irrelevant because I'm usually statistically die before then.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of aging is a new disease for humans. It's only been around for about 70 years, since the 50s.
Yeah.
Before that, we just died too soon.
Yeah.
Post 50s was an amazing time for longevity. So women, go through this and they go through a lot of mental health problems too. around that time too, because estrogen is required to make serotonin in the brain. So for a woman, it's a very difficult time because they go through menopause, they lose their beneficial hormones that are keeping them lean, basically, and they lose a lot of serotonin in their head because it naturally drops down. So it becomes quite a serious time for women. Okay. For men, we just decline after 19 slowly.
Right.
Women, it's kind of almost all
bit
at once.
Of a drop of a cliff, right? As opposed to men, it's a gradual downhill slope.
And hence the rise of...
From 19.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
not great.
That was decades ago for me.
Yeah.
So it's quite scary. But the problem with women, and what we find here is that there was a nice study done that I've got a graph for, but I'll show you. The graph shows you the happiness levels or well-being index of men and women. Now, wow. I know we can put this up on the screen, but for those, I know it's a wow one. What has happened, like look at women in the red line. Yeah. It's typically since about 1975, it's gone down dramatically, hasn't it?
It's interesting.
Yeah. So women...
I was born in 1974. Maybe that's got something to do with it.
That's
they're like, oh.
That's correlation and causation.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's probably causation.
Yeah, that's right, I think. So, hang on. So 1975 to about 1995?
That's 2000.
But here. I'm looking at the bottom of the graph. Yeah. And it really, from 1990 to 1995, I don't know what happened, but seriously, it just dropped off a cliff. So for those of you that are following on YouTube, you can see this graph. But basically, from 1975 to 1995, there's been a relatively steady life satisfaction in the United States, so it's not global, dramatically decreased from a score of positive 0.2 to a score for women down to negative 0.1, and that is a significant drop. I wonder what happened between 1990 and 1995. I wonder if there's any discussion there. What was funny is, though, that for men from 1970 to about 1975, in fact, it's probably about 1971 to about 1975, significant rise and then a steady decline. Yeah. The good thing is that in 1995, the trend turns upwards again.
Yeah.
Now, again, it'd be interesting to understand why, but this is interesting. Steve.
Oh, yeah, I've got a more recent study than that one, and it sort of paints a little bit of a worse picture. This is out of the University of Pennsylvania. And it says, by many objective measures, the lives of women in the United States have improved over the last 35 years. Yet, we show that measurements of subjective well-being indicate that a woman's happiness has declined both absolutely and relative to men.
Wow.
So, the last 35 years in this paper, they talk about women's decline in mental health.
Why?
They speculate. They speculate in the paper, which is, they talk about, well, two things mainly. The first thing is that women's role became confused, and this is what they're talking about now. I know we're going to get probably emails about this, but what they say is that a woman's role in the 70s was to stay at home, look after the house, have the kids, and that's sort of all you're expected to do. I mean, I know that's terrible, and I know we've moved on since then, but that's what the paper is saying, that from then, women are now asked to get a career.
Or they want to get a career.
Yeah, and so there's more pressure on women to perform outside their what they'd call a traditional role. So it's just a change period. Now, as I said, I think women should be able to do what they want, of course. I'm not saying that they should be locked at home and all this sort of stuff, but this is what the data is saying from the University of Pennsylvania. Now, it's interesting.
But again, you could just say correlation and causation, Steve. Now,
correct. But it's very interesting. But I found that very interesting and quite sad in a way that women's subjective happiness was always higher than men up until the last sort of 10 years.
Yeah. Well, mental health and happiness. I mean, this is why I love the American saying, for the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
Everyone should be able to pursue happiness for them, whatever it looks like.
Absolutely, it is. So we can talk about the hormones in men too.
Well, I'm really interested, Steve, to give some takeaways at the end as well too. Yeah. I know that we've mentioned a little bit about hormone and things natural in terms of food, but also supplementation. We know the importance of exercise and diet, but for women, especially if you're postmenopausal, then things like, as you said, tribulus, black cohosh, shilajit,
even red clover.
Red clover, may be beneficial to help with increasing luteinizing hormone, which produces estrogen and the good forms of it. Even things like chasteberry.
That's good too.
That can help to detoxify the more potent forms of estrogen and help the body remove it.
So there's lots of herbs and lots of stuff, and of course a good healthy diet I think is an important thing, and keep your activity up.
Okay,
it gets tougher. But you've got to do it. It's
weight bearing exercise, excellent. Now, Steve. Men. So at 19, we're over the hill.
We are.
It's crazy. But in terms of, well, you know what? Up until I was in my 40s, mate, never had a problem. Always felt good. Training at the gym, I think, absolutely helps. Good quality sleep absolutely helps. Reducing stress, I think, is a big one as well too. But for men, same thing. Tribulus, shilajit, tonkat ali, all these things I think can zinc. Zinc for men is so critical. As far as increasing the overall luteinizing hormone, which for men increases testosterone.
It does.
Now, what about reducing DHT? And I think we've mentioned it. Zinc again, probably the number one.
But also saw palmetto is great herbs like that one. And Pygeum africanum. Which are great herbs that slow down that enzyme. And saw palmetto, it was even in a big meta-analysis shows it's positive. So, even in
well, it's funny because I was reading some stuff and it was sort of a bit dodgy on saw palmetto, but I think orally it works really, really well. Topically, and again, this is more for hair loss with DHT, I think it didn't work.
No.
So, but there are ways and means, Steve.
Absolutely there are.
Anyway.
Ways, we won't go into detail. But absolutely, saw palmetto is a great one. I've given it to my family members and it's helped them with the waterworks development, benign prostatic hypertrophy, which is very common in men.
Okay.
It's a great one to remember the statistics for, because if you're 70, you get a 70% chance of having BPH. 80%.
Wow.
So it's sort of nearly every man.
So what happens if you're 110?
You've got 110%. I don't know what the stats are of that. If you get to 110, you're doing whatever you're doing, don't change the thing.
You've still got another 10 years.
Yeah, at least. Well, probably another 10 years. But it's quite incredible that men's health is really declines as we get old. It's like people will blame their age on getting a gut, or I'm too what I hate hearing, what I used to really hate hearing was, I'm too old to go to the gym. It's like, never too old to go to the gym. You do less exercise gym, you don't squat, hundreds of kilos. But you still need to do resistance exercise, especially if you're a man. It's great for your mental health and, of course, your physical health. And testosterone. And I'm picking on the gym because that's where you can get the higher intensity workout, because you don't want to go for a run on a hot day as a man through the hills there when you're at a high risk of cardiovascular disease and all this sort of stuff. You want to do moderate, aerobic exercise. But the gym, you can, think of a lat pull down and you're pulling this weight down, and the worst thing that can happen is that you let it go again and it flies off, makes noise, and everyone looks at you. You can't drop it on your head. So there's quite safe exercises to push yourself a little bit at the gym.
Even bodyweight exercises and doing slow motion squats can be incredibly beneficial. You're working large muscle groups. You're helping with insulin sensitivity because you're shuttling nutrients, into the cell. Weight bearing and even body resistant exercises are fantastic, and you don't have to set the world on fire. But you know what, Steve? It's one of those things that I think busyness of life. And if you don't actually plan these things into what you're going to do, it's not going to happen. You're going to look around and find yourself in a gym or find yourself, working out. You have to actually plan for it. And that's the biggest part, is actually making time in the day to plan for it. Steve, what else?
Okay. There's probably a synthetic route that we just need to talk about quickly.
Sure. For both men and women.
Both men and women.
Yep.
And it's all to do with creams. This is what now with men, we can get injections for testosterone.
Sure.
The Undecano 8, which is a slow release one.
Yep.
And you inject it, and it slowly releases testosterone in your system. And the beautiful thing about that is it's a bioidentical hormone that your body's used to dealing with. The pill and those ones are synthetic hormones, and they have similar actions, but it's different.
So as a chemist, as a naturopath, Steve, as well too, you don't mind the bioidentical hormones?
I don't mind them at all. It's sort of like if someone's low in, let's say they're type 1 diabetic, they're low in the hormone insulin. What do you give them? Insulin.
Yeah.
They're low in thyroid. You give them thyroid hormone.
Yeah.
They're low in testosterone. Oh, you can't do anything about that. Testosterone will kill you. No, if you're low in it and you've measured it with a blood test and you're measuring the DHTs and all the other things to make sure you can, it's just topping up to normal.
Sure.
We know what the healthy range is. You see it on every blood test.
But I'd still be obviously making sure that I'm taking care of things that help with the pathways, that help with detoxification, that make sure you've got zinc. So that way you're making sure that when you do get the testosterone, that you're helping to make sure it's going down the right pathway and it doesn't convert into too much DHT.
Yeah, and you know how you feel on testosterone.
Yeah.
As a man, you feel better.
Yeah.
It's great for your mental health.
Yeah.
We know that you can use testosterone as a blood test to predict if someone's going to, there is an inverse correlation with testosterone and longevity. Mm-hmm. So the higher testosterone levels you got, the less you live. The higher testosterone, the more you live. Correlation. Right. So if you got low testosterone, it does correlate with a lower lifespan.
Steve, during your research for this podcast, did you come across and it probably, I don't know even if they'd have tested it, but did you come across the level of testosterone levels in men over the past 50, 40 years?
It's declined dramatically.
Do you have any charts that you can share? Like, I know that it's declined, but do you have any sort of data?
We can share data on it. I haven't got a graph with me, but what we know is that men over the years, testosterone has declined dramatically since the 1930s. So it's on the decline. So that is catastrophic. Now, one of the main reasons for that would be obesity.
Yes.
Because obesity levels are going up.
And they're increasing. And the more obese that you are, the more estrogen that you produce, right? So therefore, am I correct in saying, Steve-O, that the more conversion of testosterone to estrogen would be?
Correct.
And other byproducts like DHT as well, too.
Yep,
so then the total free testosterone, and the free testosterone is the most active form to help build muscle tissue. Yep. So again, we're sort of getting whammied all over the place here. Okay.
So if you are obese, the first thing you do to normalize hormones is to get lean.
Yep.
And that's for women and men.
Yep.
Don't come up with excuses. Don't say, I'll take this herb or take drugs.
Sure.
Lose weight.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not the easiest advice, but it's the best advice.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's what the studies are saying. It's, you can, email me and say, that's terrible, but it's true. It's just the facts.
Okay.
And the facts don't care about the feelings, as they say. It's like, this is what you've got to do. You've got to lose weight.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve-O.
Yeah.
Now,
it's interesting.
In summary, is there anything that we want to sort of summarize here? Because we know testosterone, the predominant hormone for men, I guess, is significantly on the decline.
It is.
We've spoken about, good quality sleep, reducing cortisol, reduce weight, exercise, specifically weight-bearing exercise, the importance of, using things like zinc to enhance not only testosterone production. My understanding is, and again, please don't quote me on this, but zinc, magnesium, vitamin B6, for example, selenium, taurine, which I think are incredibly important with those compounds, can enhance testosterone across the board on average by about 30%.
At least 30%, all those.
So, and they're incredibly important for the production of testosterone in the body, specifically zinc, really, really important, and to prevent against producing too much DHT, which we know has a negative effect if it gets out of control.
Great.
Enhancing things like quality sleep and exercise. Absolutely.
Always.
Outside of that as well too, you could look at, once you've got those things right, things like tribulus, things like shilajit, things like Tongkat Ali can be fantastic to naturally enhance testosterone. And if you're particularly low and you're concerned, you could go and talk to your doctor about getting testosterone therapy, as Steve said, bioidentical hormones. Now, I would nearly 50, having been on both sides, would recommend that you use natural sources first, but you have to determine with your healthcare practitioner which is best for you. For females, especially postmenopausal. Now, we've spoken a lot about postmenopausal, Steve, but can we quickly talk about women that are still premenopausal? Is there any different advice that you have? Because we spoke a lot about postmenopausal women, but we know that weight gain has increased. We know that the more fat cells that you have, that the more estrogen that your body produces, and the the proliferation of fat cells, and that creates more of the type of estrogen that creates blood clots and things like that as well too. So that's estradiol 4 and 16. Correct?
Yeah, and the 4 and 16 type. So what you can do if you're in your, say, 40s as a woman, and it sounds...
And you haven't yet quite gone through the change of life.
You haven't gone through menopause, is prepare for menopause. It's coming.
Perimenopausal, they call that, right?
They go into perimenopause first, which is in their late 40s.
Yeah.
But that's when things are going to get difficult for you. So while you're in your 40s now, say your early 40s, start to get lean.
Yeah.
It's going to be easy for you to do this now and maintain your health into your 50s.
Yeah.
It's like saving for a house.
Yeah.
You just invest in your health for a bit now in your 40s. You're still young enough to be able to do good exercise, and it'll be still have your hormones to keep you lean. And don't just sort of like, I've only put on a couple of kilos, I won't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just accept my body the way it is. It's just going to get worse.
What about bone density?
Yeah, bone density is vitally important for men and women.
Yep. And
testosterone.
what does testosterone and estrogen have to do with that?
Okay, well, testosterone, and I'll quote this study here because there's a beautiful graph here which we can put up on the screen, which shows you what testosterone does to your spine and hips. It's this one. So I'll show you so you can describe it. Now, this is a pretty clear study.
Ooh, yeah.
These are the light bars are the testosterone group.
Wow.
And the placebo group have the dark bars. So, how would you explain that?
Change them from baseline.
Yeah.
It's significant.
Huge.
And as you say, p-value of 0.001, so very significant and statistically accurate.
Absolutely.
Of importance. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a huge differential. Sometimes I'd say as much as 10 times, in terms of the impact on the spine.
Yeah, compared to placebo, which is nothing. So testosterone really, look, it's good for your sex
very
life,
protective.
But it's great for your bones as well.
Yeah.
Now, estrogen is very similar.
Yep.
But for women, and I'll just read the title, it's very quick. It says estrogen deficient skin, the role of topical therapy.
Okay.
So if you're deficient in estrogen, which you will be after 50, then your skin starts to age dramatically.
Right.
So keeping estrogen levels healthy longer is better for your skin as well.
Right.
And bones. And also,
So you can go and get all your expensive face creams, but realistically you should be looking first and foremost at enhancing your natural production of estrogen.
Correct.
And again, Steve, best advice for someone who is coming to postmenopausal period of their life.
Tonkat Ali. It's all those herbs that we've mentioned all along the tribuluses.
Yep.
Shilajit,
brassicas,
those things. Brassicas to detoxify, keep your estrogen healthy.
Yep.
But also things like even red clover, black cohosh are also useful too.
Yep.
And really look after yourself. Get the diet and exercise down pat.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can do for your skin and overall health.
Good. Okay. Steve, we've covered a lot of ground. Hopefully this has helped. Again, it seems to be the old things: eat well, exercise well, get plenty of sleep, and look to get support in terms of supplementation where your diet is inadequate with your healthcare professional. And you may want to consider bioidentical hormones if that's right for you.
Yeah, I'd advise not to consider the synthetic hormones.
Yes.
I think that human hormones are better than horse hormones.
Yes.
I know, shock horror, but that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, what would you know? You're just a chemist.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Steve, I think that's all we've got time for today. Thanks very much for that.
No worries.
Really interesting.
See you next week.
See you next week. All right, it's time for more Australiana, Steve-O. So
kick ass.
I said, actually, it's funny because I said, righto. And actually, and that's funny because in Australia, definitely one of the things that we do is we add O to the end of everything.
What's my name, Jeff?
Steve-O.
That's it.
And what's my name?
Jeff-O.
Jeff-O. and you've got the bottle O, the servo. I mean, anything that you want to, I don't know why, it's longer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. Like the bottle.
Well, no, my service station, Servo, Bottle-O, the bottle shop. It is.
Yeah.
It is actually
shorter.
faster.
Yeah.
But Steve-O's not.
No.
Because I'm adding two. Steve.
Yeah. That's it. That's fine too.
Jeff.
Yeah.
But you're actually adding another. Anyway. So
crazy, all the O's.
So I've got one.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yes.
It's a bit different.
All right.
Do you want me to go first? Or
you go first.
All right. So actually, I've got two.
Oh.
And they're related.
Now, I don't know what these are, by the way.
So it's kind of funny because everything in Australian, I guess if we're sort of talking our vernacular, and typically shortens things. Typically, right? Yeah. Typically. So if I said, Steve-O,
yes,
why don't you come over for some spag bowl and a cab sav? I wonder if Americans or English people.
That's a good one.
Mate, do you want to come over for some spag bowl and some and a cab sav?
Cab sav.
Do you know what that is?
Well, yeah, it's spaghetti bolognese and a wine.
Yep.
Yeah. Cab sav. I don't know what is that? I don't drink wine.
Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Right. So it's just like it's so.
Yeah.
You know, probably people are going, "Oh my gosh, you bunch of Neanderthals," but no, it's just a hell of a lot easier than saying that.
My sister-in-law said that she wanted a cab sav the other night, and I went and got her one.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, what the cab sav? Oh yeah, that's right. You know, because I don't drink.
No.
I'm like, what the hell's a cab sav?
Yeah, there you go.
I thought, don't you want to drink instead? Or wine? No. So it's quite funny. Is that your two?
That's my two.
All right, good. I got them both. Whew, sort of. Okay, the first one is, if I said to you had a Bonza weekend.
Bonza? Awesome.
Awesome weekend.
Yeah.
Very good weekend.
Very good weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bonza can be used for...
Not bonsai. Bonza. Yeah.
Bonza.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Bonza. Yeah.
So Bonza is just good. Fun.
Yep.
Yeah, Bonza, you know.
It's funny. That's not something you hear too much of. Maybe the old generation, Steve, eh?
Yeah, like me.
Yeah, like you.
But
you wouldn't hear. And it's funny. I actually really love these words, which are kind of like 90s sayings and 80s sayings that you just don't hear anymore. And it's funny. You listen to those words and you go, "Oh yeah, that's strange. I remember that."
Like a Bonza Sheila.
Yeah, I guarantee you that any male under the age of about 50, would not. In fact, I think it's fallen out. I mean, Australians go, oh, you know, what's the other one that they say as well too? Like Sheila and
chick.
No. There's a couple of Australiana words that they go, oh, that's typically Australian, like fair dinkum.
Yeah.
Like we don't say that anymore, right? That's kind of yesteryear.
Yeah.
So Sheila's definitely
yesteryear.
It's a yesteryear Aussie slang.
Yeah. And you know, it's a term of endearment. I don't think it's slanderous, is it?
Well, it doesn't matter, mate. And we've learnt this week, right? It's really offence is just everyone's offended.
We're going to get an email about Sheila, I bet you.
Oh, you know what? And that's fine. But I think for most people who listen to this, Steve-O, they know that ultimately that we love people of all races, ethnicities and all the rest of it, that we hate the powers that be behind the scenes that manipulate people. People are, you know, for the most part, are worthy of respect and love.
Sure.
But it's the ideologues, it's the powers that be, it's the very, very elite that are looking to manipulate, cause division, and, you know, that's who we don't love.
Exactly right.
Anyway, so let's not worry about who we offend, because we probably do. As Tony said all the time, I'm offensive all the time to her.
I think I'm going to offend half the population in the next podcast.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that. By the way, was that your two words? Was that?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
So Sheila and Bonza.
Yeah.
A Bonza Sheila.
Yeah, you can combine them.
I think we're definitely going to get hay mail now.
Oh, okay.
All right. Anyway, on with the show.
Yep.